Well, we begin this morning with that battle over former President Trump's tax returns.
Yeah, the House Ways and Means Committee voted yesterday to make 6 years of Trump's tax returns public. This follows numerous attempts by Trump himself to keep his returns out of the hands of Congress. We've got a preview of those returns in a report released last night by the Joint Committee on Taxation. And it comes as the January 6th committee is also set to release its final report on the insurrection today. Now, here's what House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard Neal said after that Trump taxes vote.
I want to say this, after a long process, that this was not about being punitive, it was not about being malicious, and there were no leaks from the committee. We adhered carefully to the law.
Joining us now to break all of this down is NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Rafa and NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. Ali, let's start with you. As we said, the staff of the Joint Committee on Taxation released that report last night on former President Trump's taxes. The House Ways and Means Committee also released its own separate report. So what are the big takeaways from both?
Yeah, Joe, good morning. Well, the Ways and Means Committee's 29-page report that they filed yesterday really looks into why the IRS failed to conduct this audit of former President Trump's tax returns until they were asked to do so by the House of Representatives. We know this is a process from history that all presidents and vice presidents are required to do. So that's really the crux of why this committee fought so hard for these returns, to be able to codify this process into law to ensure that it's done every single time after former President Trump promised so many times to disclose these returns and never did. The memo criticizes the IRS for dropping the ball. It says, quote, during the prior administration, it was clear that the mandatory audit program was not a priority and was not provided with the resources needed to ensure compliance by the former president. The memo even includes a memo from the IRS admitting to this lack of resources. On the other hand, you have the Joint Committee on Taxation's report that includes a summary of these returns, but not the actual returns themselves. It also criticizes the IRS, saying that they really trusted these outside accountants, this outside firm that former President Trump used for these returns, but they didn't necessarily verify the authenticity or the truthfulness of what's included in the returns. There are several things that lawmakers are undoubtedly going to be looking into when they more closely examine the details of these reports.
And Danny, let's bring you in here. So usually there's a exemption. You don't have to give your tax returns out. They're confidential for an individual under federal law. So what's the exception here? Is it because he's a former president?
Let's take a step back. This report found that Donald Trump, who told us many times, I can't release my returns because they're under audit. It may be the case that they were never under audit, despite the fact that an Internal Revenue Service manual requires them to be under audit for a president. So in other words, the entire reason he didn't release them was a reason that didn't exist, which is just breathtaking. Now, you ask about access. The committee was always going to get access to these returns because there is a law about 100 years old that requires production of the returns to the committee. The Ways and Means Committee and the Finance Committee can review these in order to discuss legislation, to possibly come up with new legislation. So access is a different issue than releasing them. So even though it should have taken 3 days, it ended up taking 3 years of court battles to release these returns. And I say release, I should say provide these returns to the committee. Now they have elected to release them, which is, given the executive summary and the report I read, very understandable, because there seems to be a lot that went wrong here.
And that brings us into, I think, the number one question, Ali, people probably have this morning, which is when could we expect to see Trump's full returns? And then from there, what kind of information do lawmakers hope to find?
Yeah, the Ways and Means Committee says they can be released in a few days because of the amount of sensitive and personal information that has to be redacted from them before they're made public. And some of the things that lawmakers and others are going to be looking for in them are obviously Trump's yearly income, the sources of that income, the tax he paid on it, the state of his finances while he was president, those net losses he reported while he was in office, any conflicts of interest that he had during his presidency, see any association or links to foreign bank accounts, what was donated to charity, any real estate depreciations, as well as any more insight into that IRS audit, as Danny mentioned, that former President Trump was saying was still ongoing. So there's a lot to glean from these documents that lawmakers are going to be looking over in the next few days before these are released, as well as after.
And Danny, that is a long list of stuff we couldn't find out from these releases. What exactly will happen? What ramifications could we see if there's evidence of wrongdoing in these returns?
Yeah, Trump won't face any ramifications for fighting the release of his returns, even though it took several years. But as many have pointed out, the release of these returns I think of as a kind of flagpole planted in the ground. In other words, this is Trump committing to a particular thing so that when he's being investigated in other venues, for example, for inflating his value to get favorable loans or deflating his value when the tax man cometh, those are the kinds of things that put a pin in what Trump at least said to the IRS about what he owes, what he's owned, what he's given as gifts. It gives the anyone investigating him plenty of evidence, but in the case of the DOJ, it may be evidence that in other ways they've long already had.
There's something else we've been talking about all week, Allie, and that is the January 6th committee's full report, which is finally set to be released today. What can we expect? Are there any surprises left to come?
It's unlikely that this final report is going to have any surprises because committee members gave us sort of a preview of what to expect in it during that last meeting that they had on Monday. They alluded to more information on the cases that they built during these 11 hearings and this last meeting that's going to be revealed in this report. More information about the cases that they built for why they referred these criminal charges to the Justice Department for former President Trump. These cases to the House Ethics Committee for their GOP colleagues in Congress, colleagues who ignored subpoenas by the January 6th committee. There's going to be more information about the interviews of those more than 1,000 witnesses that the committee interviewed, the thousands of pieces of evidence from communication between Secret Service agents and White House officials on, before, and around January 6th, as far as some of the communication from even members of Congress to the White House trying to get former President Trump to condemn the violence going on at the Capitol. So there's so much more to be learned from these this final report that we now know committee members are sharing this information with the Justice Department. But committee members did allude and give us sort of a hint of what to expect in this lengthy report.
So much to cover this morning, Allie and Danny. Thank you for walking us through it all. We appreciate it. Another big story this morning, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is in Washington today, his first known trip outside Ukraine since the war with Russia began more than 300 days ago.
Yeah, Zelenskyy is expected to hold an extended meeting with President Biden and his national security team before addressing members of Congress. According to the Biden administration, the visit is intended to, quote, underscore the United States' enduring commitment to Ukraine. NBC News White House correspondent Carol Lee joins us now with the latest on this. Good morning to you, Carol. Obviously, just Zelenskyy visiting here is getting so many headlines. So what is he expected to actually talk about with Biden when he meets with him?
Well, they're expected to talk about a number of things, particularly this nearly $2 billion in aid that the U.S. is going to announce. And that includes those Patriot missile defense system, which the Ukrainians have been asking for some time. Now, in terms of the schedule, I can walk you through the president of Ukraine. He's scheduled to arrive at the White House at 2 o'clock. They'll go into a meeting, him and President Biden, to around 2:30. That's expected to last 2 hours or more. That's on the schedule. And then at 4:30, they will have a joint press conference where they'll take questions from reporters, and then Zelenskyy will address a joint session of Congress later in the evening. And so in addition to the aid that the U.S. is announcing that they'll be providing to Ukraine today, they're also going to discuss the future of aid in Congress and what that looks like. There's a $45 billion aid package that's moving through Congress as part of that broad spending bill. And there's a real question about whether the U.S. is going to be there in terms of supplying Ukraine with aid in the future, as officials say that this war could drag out for some time. So you'll see President Biden, President Zelenskyy both trying to really keep up the momentum and keep the country united around supporting Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the aid. How is Congress responding to these proposed aid packages right now? Does it seem like that is Zelensky's #1 focus when he speaks to Congress later today?
Yeah, and that it is, and it's partly to try to encourage lawmakers to stick with this, and also to, according to White House officials, to thank the American people for the billions and billions of dollars of aid that they've already provided Ukraine. Congress so far has maintained bipartisan support for supplying Ukraine with additional aid. Senior leaders in Congress, Republicans and Democrats, back this, but there is a growing number of Republicans within the Republican caucus who are saying, look, this is too much aid. They don't want to support this. And there's some concern about that, particularly as this goes on for some time.
And Zelenskyy is also expected to address the American people directly. So why is that such a priority, and what are we expecting to hear?
No, I think in terms of what you're expecting to hear is we've seen President Zelenskyy before address bodies of lawmakers in various countries, including virtually in this Congress earlier this year, and he'll paint presumably a stark picture of what's happening in the war in Ukraine, the suffering that the Ukrainian people are going through as Russia continues to rain down bombs on the Ukrainians, and also to thank the American people for their support and try to get them to continue to stay united around supporting them. It's also worth noting that part of the President Zelensky's conversations with President Biden are likely to focus on some of the things that the U.S. is not providing that the Ukrainians would like the U.S. to provide, some of those longer range weapons, tanks, FC-16s, things like that. And so there'll be some pressure on President Biden to follow through potentially with supplying some of those larger weapons.
All right, Carol Lee, thanks for that update. And be sure to tune in tonight for a closer look at how one Ukrainian town is surviving the war with Russia. Our special, titled Life, Death, and Liberation, Izium Ukraine, airs tonight at 10:30 p.m. Eastern right here on NBC News Now.
Millions of people are bracing for blizzard-like conditions and below freezing temperatures just 4 days before Christmas.
Yeah, the holiday storm is expected to bring heavy snow and winds to the Midwest and the Great Lakes states before slamming the East Coast. The winter threat is also putting a major strain on airports across the country as travelers get ready for their holiday journeys. We have everything you need to know before you head out of town this week. But first, meteorologist Angie Lastman has the latest on where that severe winter weather is going to hit the hardest. Hey, Angie.
Hey there, guys. And I think my advice to you this morning, if you live in the Northeast or the South, is leave early. That's what you're going to want to do, because as we get through the next 24 to 48 hours, things will get a little sticky there. Already expecting some snow in parts of the high plains. That's where that system will work through first, impacting folks there. And then eventually, as you mentioned, moving into the Great Lakes and having blizzard conditions as well as high winds. And then we'll see also some lake effect issues that I'll talk about as far as the freezing spray that could likely be encasing homes along the lakeshore in ice. This will be something to see, and you'll see, I'm sure, great visuals coming out of this on social media. But as we look ahead to basically tomorrow and into Friday, you can see most of the Northeast dealing with the rain impacts as that system does intensify, and eventually will move out of the picture. But we've got a multitude of impacts to talk about. So let's start with those blizzard conditions. Notice how much snow we're expecting, especially downwind of those lakes. We could see a foot of snow, and this is something that will be not just for Thursday, but lasting into Friday as well. That blowing snow will also be reducing visibility. We have the high winds that we're expecting. I'll show you those here in a moment, but just something to note, while it's snowing, the visibilities are going to be really difficult. As far as the Northeast goes, we're a little too warm. We're on the warm side of that system, so that means that it's rain that we're really going to deal with. But the problem is that rain could potentially cause some flooding. We'll have melting snow from last week's storm that will likely add to that. So the coastal flooding also on the table as well. With those strong winds, we could see storm surge along the coast up to 3 feet. So we'll watch for any of those flood-prone areas here as we get through Thursday, Friday, and eventually into Saturday. We'll start to see things letting up. The winds are really concerning. 50, 60-mile-per-hour winds, and this is long-lasting. This isn't just, part of the day on Friday. This will last into Saturday, and we'll finally start to see those weaken. But we could be talking about widespread power outages, hundreds of thousands of people out of power just in time for the holidays, just in time for Christmas Eve. And that is really becomes very concerning when it comes to the temperature drop that we're going to see. So in the high plains, sub-zero temperatures, but this spreads east to those locations that we're expecting to see the power outages, and we could be dealing with 24 degrees for a high in New York on Saturday with widespread power outages. This is really concerning. A big drop in temperatures after rain. That means that ice developing on the roadways causes a lot lot of problems for travel. So not just the airlines, guys, also the roads, anywhere from Chicago to Boston on I-90, maybe 95, I-70, all going to be an issue.
I feel like we're hearing a lot of people who are like, I'm leaving town today or Thursday to just try and get wherever they need to get ahead of all this.
That's the best advice, because once that system comes, it's going to be a couple days before we'll really have things under control.
Ooh, couple days.
Interesting Christmas weekend. All right. Thanks, Angie.
Well, for more on the storm's potential impact, let's go to travel expert Mark Elwood. Mark, good morning to you. So according to AAA, nearly 113 million people are planning to travel for the holiday. So just give it to us straight. What can they expect at the airport and on the road?
Look, I don't want to put people off. It's going to be a tough season because everyone is traveling en masse. This is the first really post-pandemic Christmas, but we've also got this crazy weather, which is hitting so much of the country, as we've just heard. But there are some solutions. I hope I can reassure people. You can cope even when things go wrong.
That's good to hear. And airlines, of course, already trying to brace for this storm. One employee from the Chicago Department of Aviation actually spoke about the airlines possibly activating an assistance program if passengers get stranded. Let's listen.
When there is bad weather and the airlines know that some of their passengers might be rebooked on another early morning flight, the airlines request that we initiate the passenger assistance program to set up cots and other amenities, past security for passengers if they choose to stay.
Not how a lot of people want to spend their holiday. Quite the warning there. So what should passengers do now? It sounds like you're saying it might not be too late. There's got to be something they can do.
Look, this is a Boy Scout moment. Always be prepared. The issue with travel problems when it comes to weather is you want to get ahead of them. You don't want to get caught up in the middle. Two things you can do. First, get in touch with your airline. Most of the airlines are offering waivers, which means that they'll let you reroute for free. They'll work with you to make sure you don't get caught up in predicted storms. Remember, you want to go down through the south in the winter. If you're connecting, look for a warm weather airport, probably less likely to have problems with snow. I'd also say download an app that I've talked about with you guys before called Flighty. That's the word flight, but with a Y on the end. It's better than any of the airlines apps at giving you notifications. It will tell you what's going on before anyone else does. And the key here is learning what's happening as quickly as you can. First flight you put into Flighty is free. If you want to pay for it and you love it, it's like $5.99 a month or something. But definitely a way to prepare yourself for the storms. I swear by it.
Well, so many people are clutching to plan A. They don't even want to think about plan B. Not really the way to go. We did want to ask, though, what are your tips for people who aren't flying, but they're going to hit the road for the holiday, which it's most people?
Yeah, absolutely. 90%, I think, of the people who are traveling probably going to be going by road. Remember, this is all about not rushing. I know we all want to get somewhere as quickly as we can. Leave earlier in the day to beat the traffic. Remember, I always give myself, in winter weather conditions like this, at least a third more time than I think I need, so that I'm never stressed by the road conditions. I can go a bit slower than I plan. Remember to charge your devices. Keep those really up to date in case you do get stuck. And another really good tip, pack something bright colored that you can always tie to your car or the antenna or some way. If for some reason you do get caught in the snow, it's a great way to draw attention to yourself and really simple.
All right, some good tips there. Mark Elwood, thank you.
Pleasure.
Well, in Northern California, at least 2 people are dead and several more are injured after yesterday's 6.4 magnitude earthquake. The quake was followed by dozens of aftershocks. It left tens of thousands of people without power. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer has the latest.
Jolted out of bed and into chaos, residents in Humboldt County, California, their lives turned upside down.
A structural collapse with entrapment.
A powerful and deadly 6.4 earthquake damaging homes, destroying businesses and severing roads.
We do have a broken window and several cracks in the building.
Much of Northern California was rattled, centered 200 miles north of San Francisco and just outside the small town of Ferndale. Locals say the violent tremor shook for nearly 20 seconds.
This is ground zero. We have several of the residents that have been red tagged.
First responders say 2 people suffered medical emergencies and died. 11 others were injured. Even before sunrise, the apparent damage was widespread. Homes slid off foundations, and inside, virtually everything was strewn across floors. Over 70,000 lost power. Gas lines ruptured. For some, there was warning. State officials say California's MyShake app alerted 3 million people the shake was coming 10 seconds before the ground started shaking. For communities living on shaky ground, just under 100 aftershocks are rattling not just the region, but also nerves. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.